Have you ever wondered how to keep your partner really engaged and interested in the relationship? Have you ever wondered how to keep yourself interested in the relationship, right? Because it's not always about the other person. Sometimes we lose interest. So, today I'm going to talk about the 5 stages of a relationship that everyone needs to know and understand. Okay. Hey, everybody, it's Dr. Nicole. Welcome back to the channel. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. So, let's dig in. I'm sure anyone who's been in a relationship can attest to the fact that it can feel like a roller coaster of emotions. The ups and downs, the getting to know each other, the feeling that there can be miscommunication, trust issues, different expectations. And now we're in an age where there's so much negative talk about relationships. And a lot of it is valid because a lot of it is based on the experiences that people are having. In a way, it can feel like it's the wild, wild west out there because you have a mix of people interacting with people, with each other, with all different expectations, and they're not necessarily communicating what they want and what they expect from others. So you have people who want hookups mixing in with people who want to build a commitment. You have people who communicate their needs, mixing in with people who are used to ghosting and just not saying anything. So it's this whole big mix. And it's going to help you if you understand what are the stages of committed relationships, right? And so that way you can understand what a relationship, what the trajectory, what it's going to look like for you, what the path is going to look like for you. And that'll actually help you to weed out some of the riffraff. Like if you want a real relationship, you need to understand the stages so that you don't confuse normal, the normal ups and downs and the normal fluctuations with some of the toxic things that we're seeing out in the relationship streets these days. So let's just go to stage number one. And this is a stage that most people are familiar with. This is a stage that you can see across the board, whether it's someone pursuing a committed relationship, a situationship, or just out there dating, right? And this is the initial attraction stage. Now, unless you are going into a marriage like an arranged marriage, this is usually the stage when you first meet someone. And even with an arranged relationship or marriage, there is the initial stage where you have to build some sort of connection, right? When you first meet the person. But a lot of people, this is the stage that everyone has basically gone through, where there's the initial attraction. And whether that's after you get married, as you're leading up, if you have a short courtship, or if you're just out in the situationship streets. In order for people to connect, it has to start with an initial phase, an attraction, right? And that is usually a really chemical stage. That is where we are governed by all of those neurotransmitters and hormones that you hear about. So there's the dopamine, we're seeking pleasure, there's the anticipation, and that's part of what help makes it feel like a roller coaster ride because we are driven by, what we're feeling. A lot of it is physiological and a lot of it is physical. And as much as we say, we're attracted to someone's mind and, all of these other character qualities, one of the key things in the beginning is some sort of physical attraction, or it has a physical component to it. And it feels like that's the part where we can feel like we're falling in love, where we're losing our minds, where we are just so wrapped up and caught up. And it can feel good, right? A part of that, it can be very addictive. There's some people who fall in love with falling in love. And they're so optimistic in the beginning of a relationship because those chemicals, they're under the influence of a whole mix of chemicals and physical things happening in their body. So this is the initial phase. It can be fun, it can be exciting, it is certainly intense. And Sometimes, as as that phase goes on or that stage goes on, it can also bring up some problems because it can feel like we're not in our right mind sometimes. I read somewhere that falling in love, that first stage, is the price we have to pay to build a real bond and commitment to someone. So that is stage one, and everyone has probably experienced it. Now your level of knowing what you want or your level of commitment and maturity will determine if you allow yourself to go past that first stage. Some people, like I said, they are in love with the first stage. They are in love with falling in love, and that's what they chase. And once they get out of that part that it's not as intense, then they feel like it's boring. They feel like there's no spark. They feel like I just don't know if this is the person for me, right? You want to ask yourself, if you have a pattern of not going past this stage and not seeing what happens after that feeling is less intense, then you might be addicted to just falling in love and the chemical reaction, the chemical brew that brings up. And you're never allowing yourself to get to the next stages. The second stage is building trust. So after all of that and the sparks, the initial sparks die down, then you start to get into reality. Can I trust this person? And trust is a very broad experience. Can I trust them emotionally? Can I trust them with my vulnerability? Are they trustworthy in terms of character, finances, lying, telling their honesty and their openness? Um, are they at are their is their character up to par? And this is where you might start to see some of those red flags. And again, you want to be able to not necessarily overreact to red flags, because some people, once that initial good feeling wears off, they feel like for them internally it's not comfortable, so they see everything as a red flag. But stage 2 is definitely where you're going beneath the surface a little bit, and you're looking at things like consistency, and that person is looking at those things for you too. Consistency, keeping your word, following through, honesty, right? These are all the signals of whether or not you can trust someone. And a lot of these things are hardwired into us as far as our biology. Like there's sensors, there's things, our gut, right? Ladies, I'm always telling you about trusting your gut. Your gut will tell you whether or not something is off or amiss, right? It could be the way somebody says something, and then later on they come back and they say it differently, and that doesn't mean you have to automatically end it, but you do want to be aware. And this is a stage where you get to ask questions. You get to say, like, well, what's important to you? What do you value? What are your expectations? I want to share mine with you. And hey, I noticed that there was something you said that didn't add up. And I really need to get clarification on it, right? So this trust building stage is a stage where you really want to communicate, right? And you want to, it's going to be, this is where some bumps along the road, you might encounter them, because everyone has different communication styles and everyone may have different relationship histories. But building trust is key to getting you from that beginning chemical, like everything is so intense and great stage. This is where it might start to feel like, okay, I have to have some tough conversations. I have to be able to speak up and ask questions, but I also have to be willing to be open enough to answer questions. Okay. Stage number 3 is deepening the connection, deepening the emotional connection. So this is where, you're feeling, you've felt someone out in terms of whether or not you feel like you can move forward with trust. And this is the stage where a lot of intimacy, where key intimacy is built. Building that connection, you might be sharing things that you hadn't shared before with this person. You might be spending more time together. You might introduce them to your circle, people that that are important to you. Now, What I see a lot in some unhealthy relationship patterns is in that first stage, that where all the sparks are flying. Some people go straight to like revealing everything, almost like trauma bonding, jumping in too quickly. This should be a process that evolves over time, because in stage one it's all about that attraction, and sometimes you're not thinking straight. So there's the attraction, then you need to build some trust, and then you can go forward with deepening the emotional connection. And again, this is where you really get to know somebody. You might start seeing some of the things that you you don't like, quite frankly, or they may see parts of you that aren't as flattering. And this is just the reality. When two people come together, you really have to get to know each other. And this should be where on both sides, the mask is coming down. And we all do it differently. I know you've heard a lot about the attachment styles. So avoidant attachment people may be more hesitant to really let that mask down and deepen that connection. And if they're with someone who has a lot of anxious attachment where they're looking for that validation, they that could, sometimes it's like water and oil. So you have to work that out in terms of communication and learning each other's styles. So deepening emotional connection is when you really are starting to get to know a person based on that trust that you try to establish and you're still building. That should be the signal to start to be more vulnerable, connect more, open up more, so that you can deepen the emotional connection, because that emotional connection is the real thing that's going to sustain the relationship, not just the attraction part. The fourth stage is when it gets real, and that is facing challenges together. You stay with someone long enough, you're going to face challenges, whether it's outside life challenges, whether it's internal things like things that happen in a relationship when you get to know each other. This is the part when they say relationships take work, and they do. And not everyone is up to the task, or not everyone can be up to the task, but not everyone is willing, or is that's not what everyone wants at the time. So you need to be clear that if you're going this far with someone, that they are also all in terms of being willing to not just have attraction and try to build trust and get emotionally connected, but are you all willing to go through challenges together? Now, this is different than struggle love. This is different than, some toxic, like one partner behaving poorly and the other one is supposed to just be there and take all the crap, right? This is really about mutual respect and support for each other, going through things like change in employment, death of a loved one, illness, right? Financial ups and downs. This is where you get to see the character of the person that you're building a relationship with. And this is where they get to see your character. One time I was talking to my husband, and we were talking about how sometimes a potential, like when someone wants to marry, for example, when a man wants to marry a woman, he will look at how she interacts with her family when they are in need. And not being a doormat, but like, is there a level of generosity? And on the other side too, right? A woman will look to see, does he have a character of generosity? Yes, with boundaries, but you don't want someone who is selfish to others, because most likely they're also going to be selfish with you when life's challenges hit. So, really learning that facing challenges is just par for the course when it comes to relationships, because life challenges are always going to be there. And the fifth stage is commitment. Now, I know commitment has probably been a part of all of the buildup of those previous stages, but this is where it's really a very conscious and intentional decision. And it doesn't there's no time frame on it, right? You can kind of decide to be committed as you're going through the other stages, but this is really, even after you go through all this other stages, it's almost like reaffirming your commitment. And this is key because it's not just words, it's a mental state and it's an emotional state. And it's saying that while the sparks may, die down, while all of these other things may go up and down, what is going to sustain us is the commitment. At a certain point, love becomes a choice. It's a decision. It's a verb, as they say. And so, if you are thinking that a relationship is going to be sustained just based on feelings, then you're going to be disappointment disappointed. A big part of it is the decision to commit. Now, it's not a life sentence, right? If it feels like there's abuse or toxicity, or both of you all decide you don't want to be in it, right? That's fine. But a big part of why a lot of marriages fail is that people aren't truly committed. You have to have a level of being um, intentionally committed in order to go through life's ups and downs, life challenges, as I said, changes in feelings, changes in how people look, changes in emotions. So the commitment is key. It's the last stage that everything culminates in, but it underlies the whole relationship. If it's going to last, then both people have to be committed, right? So I want you to think about a pivotal moment in any relationship, or key pivotal moments occur when you're transitioning to the different stages. So as you're coming out of attraction and going into building trust, that's a key moment. And it's okay to pause and say, "Hey, it looks like we're really going to the next stage," right? Another pivotal moment could be going through life's changes and saying, "Hey, like, wow, you just lost someone close to you," or "I just went through this and I really appreciate that we're here for each other." So, those pivotal moments and transitions between the stages, you want to make sure you communicate, that you show appreciation, and that you check in with yourself to make sure that this is something that you want to do, because the deeper you go into the different stages, the more serious the relationship is. And sometimes there's some big key decisions, like deciding to get engaged or get married or buy property together, right? There are people who are married, but they still maybe are not fully in on the commitment. They haven't signed anything together. They haven't bought anything together. They're not having kids. They don't want to do anything that's quote going to tie them together. And I would say that is a sign that one or both of them are really having some internal issues with true commitment, right? So those key pivotal moment, those transitions help you to go to the next stages. And it's good to be intentional about, hey, you realize we're really progressing in this relationship. So as we wrap up, I want you to remember three things. Communication is key. Mutual respect is key, and understanding the ebbs and flows and the ups and downs of relationships is key. Communication, respect, and respect for the ups and downs of relationships. That will save you a lot of unnecessary hardship. If you're with someone who's not willing to communicate, they ghost, they're not consistent. Those are red flags. If you're with someone who doesn't respect him or herself, or doesn't respect you, that's a red flag. And if you can't accept that relationships are not always going to be on 100 all of the time, that there's ebbs and flows, there's ups and downs, feelings may shift a little bit. If you can understand that, then you are going to be okay, because you're not going to be so reactive. I know some people, they get triggered the moment it feels like everything isn't completely perfect. I know some people who compare their relationships to other people's relationships that they perceive as perfect. And those things are not going to help you in your relationship. Okay. So don't forget, everybody, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. If you want more relationship content, feminine energy content, boundaries content, you are in the right place. Subscribe, hit that notifications bell, and don't forget to tell me in the comments, what do you think? What stage of relationships have you been stuck in the past? And where do you want to improve? What stage of relationships do you want to improve in? All right. So I will see you in the next video. Take care.